At the end of the day, I don't think we deserved it. We wasn't prepared enough going into it. Just us making an adjustment standpoint. We wasn't prepared. We didn't put the work into it.
Guys, I think we might finally be seeing some growth from Paul George, and growth is a beautiful thing. Now, if in fact we are seeing growth from Paul George, I'm really not going to hold anything against him because as human beings, we all make mistakes and nobody is perfect. If Paul George is looking to become a better person, a better teammate, a better player, who are we to be mad at him and judge his improvement? I'm going to give Paul George his props right now, and I look forward to seeing Paul George and his words start to become actions on the floor and in the locker room, because we all know the Clippers had many problems this past season. But you see, the Clippers' problems are problems that they will be able to overcome under the right mindset. It's not like this Los Angeles Clippers team was a team that was deprived of talent. No, they were one of the most talented teams in the NBA last season, even if their play didn't reflect the level of their talent. Now, in my most recent Clippers video, you guys made a lot of good points regarding the Los Angeles Clippers and their future. We're going to talk about some of those in this video. Oh, and it looks like we may have some major news regarding Paul George and his future. But before we go any further, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. You will not want to miss another Get Like Coop video. And that's facts. Guys, I have been streaming a ton of NBA 2K21 on Next Gen. You guys will not want to miss a stream. I interact with the chat, we talk basketball, and I'm going to be streaming a lot of different games. So the link to my stream is going to be in the description below. You'll also find the link to my football channel in that same description. Lastly, if you guys enjoy my content, be sure to drop a like on the video. Liking the video helps me out a lot, and it shows me that you guys are enjoying my content. Now, there's a chance you guys may have been a tad bit confused by the intro. Well, let me help you guys out for a second. So pretty much, Paul George has shown some recent accountability, and I have to give it to him. Again, Paul George has had a rough year. No way around it. Incredibly tough. This was a team with all of the expectations, all of the lights on them. They kind of wanted it that way, and that's what they got. But when you fail, sometimes things can be tough. And I'm not saying the Clippers necessarily failed, but they did not have the season that they would have liked looking back on it. This was a team that pretty much said if they don't win a championship, the season is a failure. When you put that type of expectations on yourself, you're setting the bar incredibly high, which gives you a lot of space to miss that bar. Now, Paul George calls himself his toughest critic. He admits last year was unacceptable and he needs to do better. So very recently, Paul George had some comments about Doc Rivers not using him correctly, which we later disproved in my video. For those of you that missed yesterday's Clippers video, I recommend you watch it. There's a lot of good information in it, but I'll go ahead and roll the Paul George Doc Rivers clip right now.
And then, the way I was being used, I felt like I was, Doc was trying to play me as like a Ray Allen or like a JJ Redick, like all pin downs, all like, I can do it, but that ain't my game. Like, you know what I mean?
For starters, I had no clue this clip had gotten as popular as it did. This was literally talked about on ESPN.
That's it?
You know what, Rachel? That's BS. Matter of fact, that's a bunch of BS. And it was a coward move by Paul George.
Every major sports network, the ESPN videos have almost 500,000 views already in like a day. So this clip pretty much blew up. Paul George is again seeing his name in negative light everywhere, which can be incredibly tough. So Paul George clears up the comments regarding Doc Rivers, and there's no way around it. I think this is a great quote from Paul George, and we're watching somebody's character develop right before our very eyes.
The fact that I gave up a 3-1 series being on that floor sits with me and haunts me. And not to go back and forth and I want to clear things up. I respect Doc. Doesn't mean I agree with everything that we did, but that does not belittle the fact that, we felt we were the better team.
Paul George says he takes responsibility for blowing the 3-1 series lead versus Denver and isn't trying to put the blame on others or Doc Rivers. The fact that I gave up 3-1 sits with me and haunts me. I want to clear things up. I respect Doc. Now, we all know Doc Rivers is a very good coach. How good of a coach he is remains to be determined. When you ask people about Doc Rivers, their opinions kind of go all over the place. Some say he's good, some say he's great, some say he's amazing, some say he's average, some say he gives you what he gets. And that brings me to ask you guys in the comments below, how good of a coach do you guys feel like Doc Rivers really is? And that also brings me to say, in no way was the Clippers losing versus the Denver Nuggets all on Paul George. That's completely unfair, but I feel like he has somehow taken the majority of the blame. Paul George doesn't even strike me as an unlikable player. I actually like Paul George, and I love his game. I think he's a phenomenal player. Is there a chance that Doc misused Paul George? Yes, there's a chance that he wasn't used to the best of his ability. There's also a chance that Paul George's reasoning for being misused was also wrong or off or whatever, however you want to phrase that. Multiple things can be true. I do look forward to seeing how Paul George is going to be used this upcoming season. It's clear that Kawhi Leonard is going to get his no matter what. Kawhi is an absolute monster with the ball in his hands, one of the best two-way players in the game. With Kawhi Leonard getting his no matter what, the Clippers have to make sure that they get one guy going, that guy being Paul George. If he can return back to his OKC level of play, the Clippers become a much better team. And the Clippers not addressing the point guard situation this offseason doesn't become as big of a deal. Now, look, I know the Clippers have playmakers, some decent playmakers. They got Reggie Jackson. They got a few guys. And Reggie Jackson can come in, play a bigger role. We've seen what he can do before. But Paul George can be that playmaker. When he's playing at his best, he's a great ball handler. He's got solid vision, and he has the ability to create for others around him when he gets going. I love Paul George's game, man. People have so much recency bias when it comes to today's NBA. It's so easy for people to forget exactly how good a player really is or has been. In yesterday's comments section, that's one thing you guys made sure to nail home. The Clippers still do not have a point guard. And, regardless of Paul George playing out of his mind, I think that still can be an issue going forward, but they're a talented enough team to overcome it. Just my opinion. Now, when it comes to the future of the Clippers, there has been a lot of uncertainty, especially with the disaster that happened this past season for them. But now the picture is more clear because Paul George has announced that he wants to retire a Clipper. The full statement is, usually I'd be weighing my options, but in this situation, I'm happy. I'm home. I want to retire a Clipper. This is where I want to be. This is where my heart is. The unfortunate side of things is that's just a Paul George commitment. They still have to get Kawhi to commit long term. And I think in order to have Kawhi commit long term, they may have to go out and win a championship. But remember, we did see Kawhi win a championship with the Raptors before and still leave. Los Angeles is home for Kawhi and Paul George. There's a chance both of these guys end up returning, but Kawhi strikes me as somebody that wants to win and wants players around him with the same mindset. Kawhi strikes me as somebody that leads by example. He doesn't want to have to get everybody else bought in. So if the Clippers don't buy in this season, things could get dangerous. Clicking the video on the screen right now is a great way to support my channel. I'm Get Like Coop, bringing you guys the scoop until our next upload.